Did you tap into it? Or is it live now? I'm talking away and I'm saying is it live. So hey, positive lifers. Good to see you here today. I have driven across Wicklow to be with my pal today, Orla Phelan. And the reason I'm here is because Orla does cleansing. And I've paid attention to it recently in my own life, and I did I would say I did a half-hearted attempt at it. But I really, really got a lot out of it, even though I kind of just did little bits here and there. And Orla navigates these cleanses twice a year, and she's been doing it now for how many years, Orla?
Well, I did my first cleanse in 2004. I started and running cleanse programs about 5-6 years ago. Yeah.
Wow, okay. So what I feel is there's a wealth of knowledge here in Orla's brain, and I want to get it out to you guys as much as I can. And if you want to explore her work, we'll leave all the details at the end. But let's start with the whole cleansing thing. I suppose, first of all, you're very welcome, Orla. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Paul, for coming here, and thanks for having me.
Cool. You're in your beautiful house here. It looks amazing. And Brendan's here. Give him a shout out there. He's on doing the camera for us. So, first question, Orla, I wanted to ask you was, I suppose, how did cleansing come into your life, and what was the motivation for you to get into it?
Yeah, great question. I think there's always, they say like changing your food is one of the final frontiers, because we're often up for changing things. I'll look at my belief system, I'll get some healing, where change my diet, what else is there? What are the other options? So it came after I got sick, and I think that's normally what happens. Either maybe somebody in your family is having something and you're supporting them, or else something personally happens to you and you kind of go, okay, I'm ready for real serious change. And that happened in my instance. So I had already kind of gotten into meditation, into healing, and I saw it very much as kind of an energetic thing. And I really in 2003, had the best year of my life so far. So it really did impact me and improve my mindset. I felt like I was beginning to blossom. I felt like I was beginning to find who I was. Excuse me, as opposed to who you're meant to be, or your upbringing is leading you to be. But then I went to New Zealand. I moved to New Zealand, and I just began to not feel very well. I began to get very anxious. I'd never really had an issue of anxiety in my life. I would have had stress like anyone else if you have exams, but nothing major. Anxiety and stress actually got quite intense. Also extremely emotional. So emotions up and down, and really feeling, I guess the feelings that we spend a lot of our life running away from, to be honest, and that you can. But when you move to another country on the other side of the world, you create this space in your life. I was with a partner to get to know parts of you that you have too many distractions sometimes in your own home life to get to know. And then in addition, I had then some health issues arise as well. So I had a K3 smear, which is like the HPV. It's the pre-cancer, it goes K1, K2, K3. Yeah. And then also I had a lump in my breast, and I had called in for a mammogram, and they told me they needed to urgently operate on it. And I actually had both of those findings come within 1 week of each other while I was going through intense anxiety and just emotional. So it was coming from all angles, And I was also in a very challenging relationship, so that's my bearing my soul here. And it was just in a very challenging dynamic, learning a lot about life, which I chose to do because it's great to learn, it's great to grow. It's great to step into, I always think uncomfortable waters are not a bad thing, because they lead us to realizations, to more awakening, and then to finding a more authentic path forward. So what happened to me was I was going through this challenge, and I was like, what do I do? What do I do? Well, I'm not going home. I know that much. I'm going to sort this out. I'm here for a reason. Everything is unfolding. Because I had that year of meditation and healing, that I didn't know there was something bigger at play in my life. So I thought, okay, I'll go see a psychic, which is obviously, I'm laughing at myself saying that was like a solution rather than go see it. I was already seeing doctors, but I thought I'll go see a psychic and see what they have to say. And she said to me, there's a man you need to go meet. And his name is Merv. And he's a herbalist and a healer. And I said, Merv, same name as my dad and my brother, and not a very common name either, Mervyn. So it really kind of resonated with me that there was something to listen to in that message. And so I'd always been interested in herbs, but I'd never really had much of an experience with them. So I made an appointment to see Merv, and it turned out that Merv has 3 health stores, and he is a herbalist who would do Parasite cleansing with people, and very popular throughout New Zealand. Be like booked up a month in advance, people coming from, 100, 200 kilometers away. Each day he'd have a clinic and just see person after person after person. So made my booking to see Merv. Sorry if I'm going on a bit.
No, it's cool. Get the backstory.
And I went to see this lovely man one day, and we had a great chat. And I told him about my health issues, and he said to me, don't do anything. We'll start you cleansing, and let's see where your health is within 3 months. But at the time, I was under immense pressure from the hospitals for what was going on. So I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a cleanse, and I'm going to do what they tell me to do, which was 2 operations. And just start. So that was actually the big transition in my life, where healing wasn't just an energetic thing or a meditative thing, but it actually became into the physical vehicle. So he said, what we need to do is you're going to take these herbs. He muscle tested me for everything. So he said, there's parasites in your system's out of balance, your acid level is low in your stomach, you're not digesting your foods. And he explained it to me quite clearly, to help that in a way I could understand. And he said, we will take these for a month, and we'll come back in a month, we'll test you and see where you are. And he also produced Bach flower essences. Do you use them much?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Do you like them?
Yeah, really good.
I found them amazing. My heart just started beating around them, and I'd never even heard of them before. So these things were actually very new for me, and that was the beginning of the story. So in 1 month, I had days at that stage where, just because of my mood, say on a weekend, wouldn't want to get out of bed, didn't really want to engage with people outside of my workplace, just really not myself. And I began to notice a change. But he said to me I needed to change my diet, and I needed to take the herbs. And so you actually did very well having a half-hearted, because what I said was at the time was, okay, I'll take the herbs, but the diet I'm not quite ready for. And that's what I mean by it's the last frontier quite often.
Yeah.
But you just start where you're at. If you want to cleanse, just start where you're at. Start where it feels good. Start where it excites you, where it resonates with you, because even one step can actually make quite a difference. And being on the path is where I'm about. Being on the path towards a feel-good direction is much more important than a destination. Because as soon as you're on the path, on a feel-good path, each day is a little bit better, And it's that saying every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. That's really what we're about, as opposed to, meeting some point and then saying, I'm here. So I straight away started taking the herbs and began to notice changes, and went back month, and then I really began to see shifts in my mood. I'm going to skip long story short here. After about 3 to 6 months, the shifts were so significant. I guess my mind began to become calmer, which is a really great thing. Still going through challenges. You really notice that when it happens.
Yeah.
Like, you take your mindset, you take peace of mind for granted when you have it. But when it begins to go, and I think a lot of people have gone through that in the last few years, you suddenly realize it's not something to be taken for granted anymore.
Yeah.
So I was having very, not necessarily powerful, but noticeable benefits from the cleansing, even at that level, to the point that I was like, I need to learn more about this. People need to know about this. I was talking to people, do you know about Bach flowers? They were like, yeah, no. I was like, do you know about herbs and cleansing? They were like, no. And I said, okay, I need to learn about this so I can share it with more people, because I can't be the only person going through these challenges. I was like 26, 27 at that time. And I just thought, I need to go back to Ireland, and I need to bring this information with me, and people need to know, because I was in such a difficult place. I was in such a challenge, I don't know if was it sad, is it scared, is it stressed? But I knew that was a human experience. And I knew that this was making such a significant difference that it was almost a responsibility I had to share it with others. So I went back to him. I would go every month anyhow, and then I went back, and it took me a while, probably about 6 months then to 9 months, and I was still cleansing and getting benefits. And I said, will you teach me what you know? And I couldn't believe it. He turned around and he said, yes, I will. I was like, I worked in business at the time, I was in a completely different trajectory. Yeah. And so he said, one of my people, one of his staff members, I was actually going to go on maternity leave, and he would take me in. Employ me. So it was a huge shift on not just career path, on finances and everything, but it was the most exciting thing. I had been looking for my passion in life, I really had been like genuinely on a focus the year before it had started. What is my passion? If you meet somebody with passion in their life, and you don't have too much passion in your own life, which is where I was at. It's like, oh my God, what is it that drives me? What is it that excites me, you know? And the healing had definitely the meditation, but then this, because of the differences, it was huge. And so I was delighted. So I left my business career and started at the very, very ground level working for him. And as I said, he had 3 shops at the time, and I would actually work exclusively for him for the first year, make all the remedies for the clinic. So I was trained in how to mix the herbs.
Right.
I had muscle test. I'd be given like a prescription as such, and I'd bottle everything up. I'd mix them all up and then go through them with the customer and explain how they worked. And initially I would sit in with them in a lot of sessions, and then I just went into full time into making them. And it was just fantastic. It was fantastic to see people coming back each month. I saw thousands and thousands of people. I saw children who'd missed like 30 days of school, and like parents were being called in and been told the children would be taken off them, and finding out that the children had parasites in their system, and the school saying they're, you know, the child won't turn up to school. The child was saying he was tired. And then the child came in and he won like footballer, you know, of the week. And it's like those beautiful stories, people, you know, getting pregnant, getting help, getting pregnant, like whatever's going on, be it like an emotional challenge, a physical challenge. I just saw so many wonderful turnaround stories. It was just really heartwarming. And also we would muscle test in the health stores. So we wouldn't just look at the cleansing, we'd look at all support for the person. So we'd muscle test the product, the actual, say, brand of the product, the quantity of the product, and we do that with the cleanse herbs too. So the person would tap into the body wisdom knowledge. The person would go off, and I just loved it. Basically, I found something I really enjoyed.
But you know, muscle testing is such a brilliant way to find out, because you're asking the body directly rather than the personality. My own personality has its own version of what it wants, but the body wisdom is just way above that, you know. But you know where I want to go from what you said? It's amazing, because it feels like you've had this kind of Jedi training with this genius, you know. I was getting flashes of Karate Kid, Star Wars, and you're over in New Zealand and you meet this guy and you're learning all this stuff, right? And then you come back to Ireland. And I always remember seeing you around, because we're pals like a number of years, and I'd see you at events and different things. I never really knew what you did, right? So only recently you've really caught my eye online and stuff. Like, well, a couple of years, I'd say, during COVID. You did a couple of live videos for us, and I was like, I could see such a change in you, how you were presenting yourself. Just subtly, I could see this. Wow, Orla feels way more grounded, way more in her body. You know, it was just a different experience. And I went through a tough time as well in 2014, and it brought me to a much... all suffering brings us to a better place. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's a true cliche. So if anybody out there is going through something... hold on, you're going to get through it, you know, and see what presents itself, because in those periods, I think the universe is really coming through with a clear signal, funny enough, even though we feel so disconnected, you know.
I think one of the most beautiful things about going through a challenge, and even if it's a minor one, on you know, in a day, or if it's a bigger one, it's taking a longer period, is to cry out your prayer. In a challenge, you discover what it is that's upsetting you. It becomes extremely clear. And I always say to myself, I practice this, and with people I work with, vocalize it. Vocalize your challenge and vocalize what your prayer is from that challenge. It could be a desire, a want, you know, where you'd like to head, and life responds. And I think it's because that pain, that's incredible, powerful focus.
Yeah.
That comes through, you know. So
Abraham Hicks always mentions contrast, and the more extreme contrast is, the more powerful our desire is. So if you're going through a tough time, you're actually in a more powerful place than you realise, which is amazing to know. But you know where I want to go? When you were talking about parasites, and so I've come to look at that lately. So the microbiome, right? That's really doing the rounds. Lots of people are talking about that. But the very fact that I think I want a chocolate cake, but in actual fact, it's the little fellas inside of me that want the chocolate cake, and also that they can dictate my mood.
Yes, absolutely.
So to clean up our microbiome. And I just want to say to people, you don't necessarily have to go on I don't want to think about cleansing like deprivation. I want to think about it like expansion, moving into who you really are.
Definitely.
So can you talk about the microbiome, and then bring us into how we can, if some people don't want to cleanse, if they can incorporate simple things in their life that can just, you know, bring them to a better place without having to be so deprived, in a sense, you know?
Sure. Just to start on that point, if that's okay, I think a cleanse is actually about self-love. It has to be, you know, because in life, if there's an awful lot of suffering, It's actually, the cleanse takes you out of suffering. It opens your mind. It makes you feel like you have more time in your day. It makes you feel incredibly peaceful, present, more like the witness, the observer. It's the greatest catalyst there is if you're into awakening, or just simply being well, or being the best you, or letting go of the past, or releasing trauma, whatever way is working in your path, or whatever words resonate there. There's nothing that works as intensely and as quickly as cleansing the body. But it needs to come from a place of loving yourself, of being kind to yourself. I think that's really important, because that's when we cleanse, we start tapping into a different energy. So we get a lot of energy from sugar, right? This is the thing. Sugar, the obvious stimulants, right? Alcohol, and then convenience would be mostly processed foods. And then the more sugar, coffees, stimulants, processed foods we have, the less alkaline our blood is, and the less alkaline our desires become. So we're always leaning one direction, to think of it that way. And so if we're leaning the direction, which is normal, and it's okay to do this, it's just that after a certain period of time, it's good to pull back. So if we're leaning the direction of having sugars and stimulants, coffees, whatever else in our regular diet, that's where we're accessing energy. But once you begin to cleanse, you've cut off accessing that energy. So it's like, what do you do then? And it's about accessing the energy that's inside of you. There's actually a light inside of each of us. And that's why when we do cleanse programs, we do a lot of inner work. You get an inner journey workbook. And it's actually about this relationship beginning to open up. And it goes from a flicker of light you might see the odd time to like the sun that's inside of us. That is the eternal light, or the infinite cup, or whatever you call it. And we begin to relate more with this part of us than with the sugars, And I just think it makes such an incredible difference. But it is based on kind of kindness. It is based on openness, let's say. And so there does need to be that aspect of love. But the other thing is, I think sacrifice, it sounds terrible, right? Sacrifice. Sounds like somebody's going to get murdered, maybe, right? But it's such a beautiful thing, sacrifice. And it's to look at sacrifice as intention. I think they're kind of similar. Like, how do you even define one? Like, so to look at little sacrifices. So let's say you can cleanse program, which is a 4-week cleanse, but you can also do something today, right? And I would love us to get into it. Sorry, I'm kind of skipping. You're talking about hacks. You said would like us to talk. So there's lots of little ones you can do. But like a sacrifice might be to not have sugar at nighttime if you're not cleansing, right? But then you bring into it an intention with it, or a reason for your sacrifice. And you start developing this energy, and this internal kind of potency begins to become stronger with these moments. It might be like, okay, I'm not going to have sugar tonight, or on a cleanse, whichever resonates with you more. But I'm going to do it for this reason. It could be your work, it could be a relationship, it could be your own health, but you become kind of clear in your relationship, more conscious in your living and your decision making, and the universe brings back this energy to you, and it grows and it grows and it grows. Yeah, and so through cleansing, opening up this kind of awareness and inner light, a lot of energy begins to come through that. And I think that's a really important part, and kind of, smiling internally back in is, it just leads you on a really wonderful journey. Yeah. It's explorative. Yeah. It's discovery. Yeah. It's experimental. Yeah. It's a very cool experiment.
It's a very cool experiment. Yeah, you get to know yourself so much more.
Yes.
But talk like about the microbiome and the parasites and the things that make up our, like I can feel it myself, it's like they're affecting my mood. Like I felt really clear this morning, and the reason I felt clear was because I had a big lunch yesterday, a very small meal in the evening. I played soccer. I went to bed relatively early. So I wake up today and I'm just, my energy levels are way up, and plus I had a blast of your hydrogen, what is it again?
Hydrogen peroxide food grade.
Yeah, hydrogen peroxide food grade. So talk about the microbiome, Orla. Give us I want to know, you must know these fellas intimately, right? And it's not that they're obviously our friends. They work with us.
Yes.
But they need to be kept in balance, yeah? Exactly. What's our responsibility to the microbiome, do you feel?
Sure. So how I was trained with Murray Fisher in New Zealand was that, you have so many bacteria in your internal system, right? In your immune system. And every day you have new bacteria being formed. And it depends who the majority shareholder is in your body, right? So you've got bacteria that live off sugar and low oxygen environments. And you've got those who actually are the opposite and thrive in oxygen-rich environments. Now, they actually have done clinical trials, and I have some of them on my website, that show there are different bacteria in the microbiome that relate to leanness versus obesity, as well as depression versus being more energized. So actually there are specific strains. And if you look at those strains, you'll find that the ones that live in the less oxygenized environments, that are thriving off the sugars, are the less beneficial. And you know, the sugars, I often think of them like an acid, you know, so it's creating almost like a destructive internal energy. So you can imagine if you were to take those little bacteria and think of it as people, and you're putting people under very challenging circumstances, you're not going to get very good energy back. So what we can do is we can shift that majority shareholder, to the more friendly bacteria, and boost the microbiome this way. And then the new players that are coming in every day will begin to join it. And yes, you'll get the health benefits, more energy, the body will feel leaner, and digestion will improve. Where would you like me to go with this?
Well, it's not a case of, we're not going in there to kill these fellas. We're kind of going in to balance them. So it's changing the environment.
You need to have bacteria there, the core of the immune system, And it's the certain ones that are taking your energy, because you know,
when we talk about parasites, what do we actually mean by parasites?
It can be it can be anything.
Is it just an overgrowth of one particular one that's causing?
No, it could be candida. Yeah. It could be microbacteria. They could be so small that you cannot see them, like they're microscopic. But we did have a case, and I was in New Zealand, where a woman did a cleanse and she had actual little worms coming out of her eyes.
Oh my God.
You know, so it's on all levels. There's well over 150 different types. And the herbs we use actually work with over 150 types. So it could be fungal, it could be molds, it could be bacterial. So we're really working with antimicrobial for that reason. So, and then in your intestine, you're going to have certain areas where there'll be one particular strain that will be the majority. They're very important that we keep those in place. So that's
the word parasite seems a bit scary. It means they're kind of living off, they're actually taking the nutrients from your food for themselves. Is that what's happening?
They come into the body. Yeah, it's a really good question. And they don't just take the nutrients from your food, they actually change your internal system. So they change the environment to work for them. So they make the environment more favourable. So one of the first things you often find is that the acid level of the stomach will change. When the parasites come into the body, if they get into the stomach, which is usually the first place, if they're coming through the mouth, through undercooked meat would be very, very common, or fish. So they're always things to be very cautious of. They will change the acid level of the stomach to make it more preferable for their own internal environment. They're very clever, they're very wise and adaptable. So they'll decrease the acid level of the stomach, okay? Now here's the thing, when our acid level drops to a certain degree, we begin to get reflux, okay? But when we get reflux, people think they have too much acid. So they begin to take antacids to decrease the acid further. So the thing is that your reflux will only be coming in a certain degree of where your acid level is. But if you go further down, you won't get the reflux, but actually your acid needs to be all the way back up here for your enzymes to activate and be released. You know?
What are kind of ways that people can supplement that, for example?
Okay, so yes, so how to know that your acid level might be low is the bottomless pit feeling in your stomach. Like, I just can't feel full. It's a classic. The hangover feeling, I think that's because it's kind of stressful on the body. There's too much alcohol. So they would be the things I would look out for. Also, if there's a lot of gassiness coming out of the mouth. That's often the stomach related. Gassiness out of the bottom is usually intestine related. So what you can do is, you can take herbs firstly to rebalance them. Like we have the wormwood in particular is very, very good for rebalancing the acid level of the stomach. Okay. Also has quite a feel-good feeling, and it's antimicrobial. So you could take wormwood, you could take a course of wormwood for a month or two, and that would boost it. Then you could take apple cider vinegar, if you're not taking your wormwood. You could have a shot of apple cider vinegar about 15-20 minutes before your meal with a little bit of water. That will raise the acid level slightly. Lemon will also do the same in water. Starting with a morning tonic and clearing the system is also a really good idea. And then in the health store, you can often get betaine HCl, which will help replace the acid level or raise it back up. But what you want to do is you want to find out where you're at, and then to raise it back up to bring it back to scratch. So a little bit of muscle testing can be really helpful. But if somebody's watching this right now and they're like, oh, I think I have this and I just want a quick fix, I would say probably look at the betaine with enzymes in the health store. You take 1 with a meal, and then take 2 with your next meal, and you keep increasing till you notice your digestive system changing. It'll be written on the bottle. You can have a look. That's a solution. And then to recognize when your acid level drops going forward, and then to support it in that time. Obviously, the biggest thing for acid level of the stomach, in addition to parasites, is stress.
Yeah.
That changes the whole system, you know.
The whole dynamic, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you now do 2 cleanses a year.
Yes.
Okay, so you bring people on this journey.
Yes.
And you've really broadened it out now. Now it feels to me like it's a real spiritual kind of vibe, you know, to it. It's not just cutting out foods. There's you do a lot of journaling, meditation.
Yeah.
You really connect with the group, and you keep them inspired and you keep them motivated. And you have a kind of like, I only engage a little bit, but you have there's a discipline element to it, but you're very reasonable within that as well. Yeah, you're very free within that. So just maybe talk to people about what the experience of doing a cleanse will be like, and why you do 2 a year, and why you pick certain times of the year to do them. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a saying like, every year do a good clear. But if you're like myself when I got into it, or yourself, perhaps some people have never cleansed. So if you've never cleansed, I just want to wave the flag, and you've got health issues, and you're looking to rebalance it naturally, you're probably looking at like a 3-month cleanse. I cleansed for a couple of years when I began. It was 2.5 years. So, you know, but it did me the world of good. And actually it gets very easy. The first month is, you know, you're changing your patterns and your routine. And then the reason we do it twice a year is I just think it's great to cleanse twice a year. I would say at least once a year I'd encourage people to cleanse. We get about, I reckon, a 1 kilo build up on the intestinal wall every decade. So has that been cleaned out of your system? And if not, that is actually a growth area for the bacteria. But like equally challenging for us is that makes it very difficult for the nutrients from your food, even if you have an amazing diet, to assimilate into your body. And it traps wastes. So it's almost like carrying around like a bag of rubbish with us, you know. So to clean that out, a 1-month cleanse will usually do that if you've done your initial cleansing. And it's also a great way for health maintenance. I was very strict, as you know, I mentioned I cleansed for 2.5 years, and then I came back to Ireland then, and I kind of kept that lifestyle for quite strict for many years. But now I like to free flow with life a bit more, and I think it's quite realistic that people like to have the freedom to make the choices of what they'd like to eat, they'd like to go on holidays. So I think being comfortable with ourselves, being allowing, combined with some discipline is the best approach for most people. They say we work best with contraction, then relaxation, and on a daily basis, but also on like a larger cycle, like yearly or longer. So the cleanse will enable you to have that self-discipline. It will help you reset your entire digestive system. You'll have a few large movements. There's nothing massive where you're running to bathrooms, but you'll have a few decent movements, and regular daily movements, extremely important. So yeah, it will give you that opportunity to reset everything. Also your taste buds totally reset, which is wonderful, because you begin to taste foods. And your desires then for sugars, they're gone.
Yeah.
I think it takes 2 to 3 weeks for most people. And literally, and again, I say to people, it's an interesting experiment to see. So yeah, every 6 months I will cleanse. And so I invite people to join with me. I hold it 100% when I cleanse, because I feel like it's a challenging thing to do. I'm not going to lie about it. But if you do it with a group, it's much easier. And so like my part of that contract is I'll hold that space with integrity and with the hope that it will help someone else who would like to step into that space, you know, experience.
And does it help you as the kind of master cleanser? Do you keep yourself really clear? Like, do you ever find yourself slipping a bit and you go, my God, I've got all these people and I'm like slipping? Or does it, you know, when you...
Like a chocolate cake or something?
Yeah, when you teach something though, it makes it easier for you, I feel.
Absolutely.
I can't imagine you slipping.
Like a huge no. It's something bigger than that.
The responsibility, not necessarily like it's a good responsibility.
It's like, you see, when a decision is made, it's made. You know, it's like a choice is made in a microsecond, right? So for me, it's especially when there's other people. I think it strengthens me. I think I get strengthened, and I hope everyone gets strengthened by it, to be honest. And that's the idea behind it. That's why we do meditation every morning. So if people really want to, you know, enter into that aspect of regulating the entire nervous system, That's a huge part of it as well. You know, our whole environment begins to shift as well as we cleanse, because as things change here, things change out there. So we're trying to support that. We also do a bit of house clearing often in it. And yeah, it's almost like a spring clean for you on every level. And so, you know, let's give it some focus. Let's get the most out of it. And then afterwards you can integrate back into whatever level you like.
And I love what you're saying about not deprivation, expansion, you know, coming back to who you really are. And I want to talk about a few little things that are out there at the moment. We're on half an hour now, so we'll go another probably about 10 minutes. Anybody wants to find out more about Orla, we'll obviously post it in the comments so you can find out more about her work and what she does. And I highly recommend her work. I think it's really, really on it. And I got a little taste of the group, and I love the way you did a little buddy program as well, like people team up and work together. So I want to ask you about a couple of things like fasting. Where do you stand on fasting, intermittent fasting, which is really doing the rounds at the moment?
Yeah, a lot of people, fasting works for certain body types more than others. I'm not so much, I might fast for a day, and fasting for I would either be light foods or no foods, or I might have one light meal later in the day. But I don't practice intermittent fasting purely because of my body type and metabolism, but I know it works wonderfully well for a lot of people. So I'm absolutely not against it, but personally I find the cleansing and then light eating on certain days. There is a Kadashi, which is practiced in the Vedic system, and that's the 11th day after every full moon and new moon, and that's a spiritually potent day for fasting. So I try in those days to fast, and yeah, that tends to be what suits me best. I think it's wonderful, by the way, fasting on all levels.
Yeah. And what about for people out there who say, you know, I just can't, I travel a lot, I work a lot, I don't know how I could do that for that period of time. Can you bring cleansing into your life as a full-time practice? What would I say, in a kind of homeopathic way? Can you do that? Can you bring it in gently and just live? I mean, I tend to live quite a good, but I'm always attached to freedom, you see, but I think it's an attachment because I'm the one restricting my own freedom, you know, in that moment. But I just wanted to ask you, can you bring it into your lifestyle? I know you have, in a way, you have a gentle cleansing going on all the time, I imagine. So can people do that? Yeah, for the person who wants to do it like that?
Absolutely. Look, you can, whatever you want to do, you can do. So as I said, when I started cleansing, I didn't change my diet. It actually took me over a year to go full cleanse. It took me 18 months to go full cleanse friendly. And at that stage I'd gone vegetarian too, but you can even cleanse eating meat, but don't eat raw meats. There's certain kind of guidelines. So you could cleanse by just taking herbs and keep your diet. If that's a starting point, it's a great starting point. It really is, you know. If you could cleanse by perhaps starting to do some meditation or having like 15 minutes of quiet time for your mind a day, brilliant. And again, like with meditation and these things, don't expect the changes initially. You tend to, they happen like, they say we grow more like this. So you feel like you're in the same place, but suddenly you're somewhere else and you're like, oh. So I would say, you know, whether you're taking some quiet time for your mind, which is a form of cleansing, whether you're sitting in nature, go sit by a tree. You know, if you're feeling really lazy, I feel really lazy sometimes, you know, go sit by a tree. It will actually help cleanse your energy field. Drink super greens. It'll help cleanse that electromagnetic energy from the system and alkalize you. You know, have apple cider vinegar before your big meals. Take vitamin C. Don't have loads of oils or sugars late at night. Have them earlier in the day if you like. So I think it's finding the way that it still excites you and feels good. You could even take, you know, some beta and HCl for your digestive system. You know, check that you're having a daily bowel movement. This is huge and really important. Check that perhaps you could, have super greens or introduce a juice. So, whatever level works for you, I think you can.
Sure, you can, yeah. And, you know, you spoke at earlier there about the fuel the body uses. So in one instance, it's using sugar and starch, okay, for people who are really kind of, lots of people who have croissants in the morning, that kind of brekkie, right? That's going to really burn you out a little bit. So, but there's another fuel now that's really catching on, and that's the whole keto thing. So using good fats, and I'm sure people are aware at this stage that not all fats are bad, you know, so fats, there are some really good essential fats that we can use. That source of fuel, a lot of people are talking about that at the moment. What's your view on the whole keto thing?
I love good oils.
Yeah.
I haven't followed a keto diet because it just, I guess it hasn't come to me, or I haven't needed it, or it hasn't happened yet, maybe, who knows. But I'm a big fan of good oils. I'm a big fan of well, certain body types need a lot of good oils. We were talking about this earlier. I'd definitely be one of them. For the brain, I mean, your brain is comprised mostly of good oils, and if there's any mood issues, often the brain is actually low in oils, you know. And also for women's hormones, they're required for the skin health. But I also would love. I tend to stay away from wheat, but I use a lot of spelt. I find that really good. That very, very easy to digest, be it in pasta or bread, and also kind of gives you a feeling of sustenance, which we're often looking for too. And I'd obviously be a fan of vegetables going organic where you can, but not all are, and that's also okay. So finding your own balance with that. So good oils play a huge role in the diet, and I would aim to have quite a large quantity of them a day.
And name the good oils, Orla. What are the good oils? Because people are kind of like, is rapeseed good? Is like, what's the story there? Do you know?
I mean, there are continually, like, it's a good question. I'd ask somebody else if they were sitting there, you know.
Yeah.
But what I would have is, like, I make porridge and I have like a decent oversized spoonful of coconut oil goes into my porridge every day. After I cook a lot of my meals, depending on what they are, I will put on extra virgin olive oil onto them. I would also use seeds and nuts and be getting the oils out of them, so they would be raw. I would use them mostly, and I would add them to porridge as well and to certain dishes I'm making, like salads. And there also can be like sesame seed. Big fan of sesame seed in Ayurveda. That's very good for a lot of systems. I would also put sesame seed oil on the skin, not roasted, because that's the one that has the strong smell. That's when I first thought. I thought, I'm going to smell like sesame seeds. But again, the body actually absorbs it through the skin.
Okay.
What other oils would you go for?
Avocado oil, I'd say,
Super
is probably
duper,
good.
yeah.
Hemp oil.
Yes.
Yeah.
And avocado, I don't think you're not going to, you put it on cold after you've eaten, after you've
I
cooked
take
your
a
food.
spoonful of it sometimes.
Oh, it's very good. Straight down the hatch.
Straight down the hatch. And avocado itself is amazing, yeah.
It is, absolutely, yeah.
And you know what I want? I'm a big fan, like I'm not a big fan of sugar, but I love sweet, right, in my life.
Yeah.
So I've been discovering for a number of years how to make like healthy desserts.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
lovely.
And you do a lot of that, do you, I imagine?
Do some of it, yeah.
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 Like the chocolate mousse one.
Yeah.
Avocado, cocoa, like cacao powder, and a little bit of maple syrup if you want to sweeten it, and you blend it, and you get like a chocolate mousse.
Yeah.
And some coconut oil as well to give it a bit of body, yeah.
And you'll find that tastes nicer, right? Than something
Unbelievable.
extremely sugary.
And recently I threw coconut cream in, and then I threw a bit of peanut butter in. It's like, it's unbelievable.
It's a whole universe, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the thing, like cleanse-friendly food tastes amazing.
Yeah.
It actually tastes way better than non-cleanse friendly food, which is usually, you know, a huge kind of realization for us all when we get into it.
It really does. And you've less cravings, your mood is better. It's like it's kind of, I wanted to ask you about though sugar. I mean, is maple syrup, are those kind of things, they're better for us because they're more nutritious than white sugar.
Yes.
But they're still raising the glycemic, yeah?
Yes.
Is there anything that absolutely does not raise the glycemic? Is stevia?
Stevia is it. That's it.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. And have you found a particular brand
I have
that works?
two stevias I use. There's a couple that are quite good. I use both a liquid and a powder stevia. So it depends, like if I'm cooking and I'm making a sauce and I want to break it, like if it's tomatoes and a bit bitter or sour, any of these tastes you want to add some sugar to break, I use stevia liquid, one or two. It's very sweet if you haven't used stevia, so just a little taste it and a little more. And then I have the powder if I'm sprinkling it on top of something. I have the brands in the kitchen, I can look, but they work really well.
You'll find them in your local health store.
Yeah, absolutely. There'll be a couple of options there, but having both is very handy. If you're cooking, the powder doesn't work well in sauces, I find.
Yeah, I read somewhere that if you get the drops are better, more pure or something, and its natural colour I think is green. It's not white. So if you get a green one in the drops, it's supposed to be better.
I actually grew it in New Zealand, and it looks like grass.
Okay.
Yeah, and it just tastes, they say 200 times sweeter than sugar, and it actually has quite a positive impact on the pancreas, which is, you know.
It's amazing. Like,
Instead of
imagine if we
taxing.
switched all the chocolate bars to stevia overnight.
Yeah.
The world would just be complete.
Well, that's the thing. Like, we call it cleansing and we think it's a change, but the more you get into it, you realise that's actually our normal. That's what we're made for.
Yeah.
That's what makes us kind of an upgrade. It's not even just upgrading it. It's like, as you said, coming back to like the real you. It's like really good fuel that makes you feel really good, that makes your whole system operate better, that makes you happier. Do you know one of the biggest things people find they cleanse? They sleep way better.
Yeah.
So it's all these other things that really kind of come out of it. Yeah. I think it's just we're made for real foods. We're not made for processed foods. We're not made for huge amounts of processed sugar. One of the things I would say, you're mentioning there about the honey, like honey, you know, local honey is amazing. Whether you have your agave or your maple syrup, I just try not to have them too early in the day, because then once you get a high up on your sugar spike, it'll come back down and you'll want to get another one. So I'd often say to people when you're coming out of cleansing, if you can, just stay away from your sugars in the morning. Use your stevia in your porridge if you need it. A lot of people don't. And then wait till like lunchtime or the afternoon. And often then you could actually make a nice fruit smoothie or something like this to pick you up. And then it takes you to dinner time, you know. Have good meals. Actually, when you're cleansing, often people will have 5 meals a day.
Yeah.
It's really not quantity, because as soon as you get into these cleaner foods that taste amazing, the body in about 10 days will self-regulate its own appetite. And what you'll find is people's desires really decrease in quantity.
Yeah.
And it comes back to what's its natural, optimum intake.
Yeah. I thought when I was the reason I mentioned the fats was because I find if I skip breakfast and I have a few spoonfuls of oil, I feel like I have a lot of energy until lunch. So I'm running on the oil.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that would be a case, you know. Someone else may be running on the porridge or something like that, but the oil is keeping me going. And I think that's a keto thing.
Yes.
It does work for me, but I wouldn't be doing it all the time, but it definitely works. So if you're in a rush and you can't have breakfast, have a few spoonfuls of oil, you'll be amazed.
You're like a finely tuned machine.
It works, yeah, it works.
It's really great for inflammation as well, right? It keeps down your inflammation, so yeah. Nice.
So the low stomach acid thing, that's very interesting as well. We've kind of covered that. Before we go, I just want to tell people what's coming up for you basically next?
Thanks. The next cleanse, I'm actually putting an online course for cleansing so people can do it themselves, because some people mightn't like to be part of a group, so I respect that totally. So that will be up in the next couple of weeks. So if anyone's interested, send me a message and I'll let you know. And that will take people, we'll give them all the base information of what are parasites, how the diet works, what the options are. There's five different steps, from taking your herbs, choosing the diet, to making sure the body stays regular, etc. So that'll all be in that, and like a monthly, daily little guide plan. But the next guided cleanse will be coming towards Christmas. So the last one we did mid-October to mid-November, which works quite nicely, because it's nice. People think entering December is a bit of a wild month, but it's nice to enter December feeling really, really good, you know, and then you really enjoy whatever you're going to have. So it'll probably be around then. Also, what's coming up, I have a children's story. Can I mention that?
Yeah,
totally unrelated. But it's about a 10-year-old girl. It's all in 4-line stanzas. So it rhymes the whole story. And it's about a 10-year-old girl, Irish girl, who is getting bullied and kind of goes through a spiritual awakening, finding out that she's part of an ancient lineage from the Fianna. So it's kind of spiritual and magical, and that she has this gift. And so she goes on this journey of discovery, basically. So that will be coming out in about a month's time. And I would love to share that with people. It's for children of all ages, including ourselves. And also there's questions at the back, like a workbook section. And the idea behind that is to open up communication between guardians and children, because I think there's so much great information that doesn't get shared. Especially as I would have grown up with the slightly more mystical experiences. And I think actually these are quite normal for children, but there's not a lot of space for them. So I'm hoping that this story is uplifting, it's healing, but also it brings conversations to the table, and it gives space for children to be heard. And also we have an amnesty for children. So if a child wants to share something they've been scared they might get in trouble for, that everything is like, they have an amnesty-free pass. And I just think communication is hugely important. And whether it's a child talking about a fairy tale, about seeing some flashing lights, or about what happened in school that day. And I think the key thing is to ask the questions. And of course, you know, I don't have children, so I don't know. All the parents out there know a lot more than me. I take that. But this comes from a very good place in my heart. I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and that was the reason behind it. It's named after my goddaughter. So
the book is called?
Sadie and the Other Side Crystal.
Sadie and the Other Side Crystal.
Yeah, so she finds this crystal, and it shows her the other side of situations she didn't know. So she holds it up. Yeah.
And that's out in a month, is it?
Yeah.
Your first book?
Yes.
Brilliant, well done.
Thank you. Yeah, it's based on a dream I had in 2003, so it's been a long time in the making. And then hopefully there'll be some others coming out. I have Waking Up the Inner Hero. The other stuff is all for adults though, and it's more spirituality based and meditation based, and the soul's goals. So yeah, hopefully there'll be more programs coming up. I run programs every now and then. Might be having one on starting towards the end of May, running for a month, for people who would like to do a bit more meditation, a bit more inner work, but just for a focused 4-week period. and that will lead us into summer solstice. I encourage everyone to take a bit of a break.
What about like live in-person workshops and things like that? Do you do anything like that?
I do, absolutely,
and
yeah.
One-on-ones? Yeah.
One-on-ones happening all the time,
yeah,
between Dublin and here, and also certain sacred sites. So I work with people often for like 6 months to a year if they're moving through change. And the idea is to see that change from kind of the soul perspective, why it's come in, what the gifts are, how we use it as our fuel for our transformation, and just to share that journey with another. And we have tools like certain meditations, inner journey work that we do with it, affirmations. Yeah, and everyone or anyone who's interested can have a free call actually, and we can talk about how I can support them and what that might look like, and then we can see.
Brilliant. She's doing so much, isn't she? Yeah, Orla's website, is orlafeeling.com, isn't it?
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you. Got that right. Dead. Huh?
Yeah.
Orla's email.
Oh, yeah.
Prompts from the cameraman.
Thank you. orlafeeling@live.com. Orla Feeling.
Okay.
And if you go onto the website, you can actually book in a discovery call through it automatically, or send me a message from that. I'd love to hear from anyone who's interested in any of the things that we've shared. It'd be so welcome.
Just even if you take apple cider vinegar, whatever it is you want to do, just little baby steps, and then if it leads you to Orla, go for it.
Yeah.
And there was one thing you said there about children and parents, and I'm the same as you. I have loads of nephews and nieces, and I was just thinking, I have so many nephews and nieces, I hear different things from them, but I'm noticing at the moment that children are kind of gifted now. We were always gifted, but now there's the veil is definitely thinned, right? And there's a lot of stuff happening for kids, and I think it's like to be celebrated as a gift. So if your kid's a little bit scared or having trouble in school or whatever it is, know that they're going through something kind of beautiful in a way, and they're going to step into who they really are. They seem to be doing it a lot earlier than we did. For us, I felt it was like, if I compare it to Terminator, we're like the older model, Like, it started happening to me in my 20s, And now I'm noticing it's happening to them at 14, 15. They're going full on, like, major, like, breakthroughs,
Yeah, I think they're not taking on all the baggage that maybe has been taken on generation. And it probably does get lighter each generation, and a lot of them have come through to lead the way and to not have the burdens, let's say. And that can be really frightening, I think, But actually it is really wonderful, and it is a liberation. Yeah. Can I say something as well?
Yeah.
Just what you mentioned about the cleansing and the master cleansing. I'm always learning, and I'm sure there's people watching this now who've got some great insights, and I would love if you have something to share on cleansing to add it in the comments. Can we ask for that? And even when we do a cleanse group, I facilitate it, but really everyone comes in as a fully present being, and we share that circle space together.
Yeah. Great. Well, any comments you have, stick them in there. Anybody's watching on the replay as well, stick the comments in, because we'll keep an eye. This will go up on our YouTube channel as well. And I want to just say that the theme of Positive Life for the summer is relationship. So Orla's article will kind of follow. We're going to have a printed article on this interview as well, which will follow the relationship with ourselves, is the kind of vibe of this, and about cleansing and looking after your body from that perspective, So that's out in around first, second week in June. And so thanks, Orla. Anything final you want to add before we go, or?
Just say it's great being here. Thanks, Brendan. Thank you, Paul. And say thanks for watching, and thanks for being part of this.
Yeah, we really want to do this as a regular. We were just saying we do most of the things on Zoom now, so we have to do a little Positive Life kind of TV channel or something. Get our own little studio. So anybody out there has a little studio and wants us to come in and do positive podcasts or TV shows, give us a shout, yeah? Thanks everybody for tuning in. See you next time. Thanks, Orla.
Thanks, Paul.